Should you care about what people think? Well, the common answer that we hear is no. And if we dive into that a bit, why is that? It's because that message is usually directed at the people who care about what everyone thinks. And you can't please everyone. So then it's a losing game. And you just suffer because it's never enough. And if nothing you do is ever enough, then it's only a matter of time before you come to the conclusion that you're not enough. Because over time, we start to tie things to our identity as a way of explaining our reoccurring behavior or temperament. But it's not as simple as to say, stop caring what people think of you or what you're doing. Because we're actually wired to care what people think. It's in our nature. You know, what doesn't care what others think? Reptiles, lizards, snakes. But we're not reptiles, we're social mammals. And most mammals, if not all, have perceptual faculties in their brain to address how they are, or calculate rather, how they are being perceived in their environment and how to modulate their behavior to increase the chances that they're always welcome. Because when you belong in a tribe or in a group, you are safer, you have more access to everything, shared resources, and you can get much further with a group than you can as an individual. This is something that humans figured out 1,000,000 years ago. So it's less about learning how to not care and more about learning how to be selective in whose opinion matters. Who is it exactly that you want to get along with? You know, as humans, we've had an intrinsic drive to belong. We're always searching for a strong sense of belonging. But if we don't focus that from the top down, which is to say a cognitive approach, if you don't direct that consciously, then maybe you end up with a sense of belonging in a group that isn't good for you. But all you know is that it feels there's something good about it, not because of the direction of the group, but for the very sake that you belong. So instead, ask the question, where is it exactly that I would like to belong? And how could I evolve my being so that I'm not only welcome in those groups, but they're attracted to me because of what I bring to the group? This is much more realistic and useful than trying to not care about what anyone thinks, right? The only people who fully achieve that are the extreme narcissist or psychopaths. They become so dissociated from others that they wouldn't care what you thought of them if they tried. So I don't think that's the goal. I don't think it's a healthy ambition. But okay, so whose opinion should actually carry any weight in our lives? Well, from an evolutionary perspective, it's those closest to you in your tribe. Except the brain today can barely decipher who that actually is because of social media and the news and advertising and movies and TV shows. So we have the whole world at our fingertips. And we can get praise or criticism from people halfway around the world that we've never met and never will meet. So it takes a little bit of diligence to focus on who is it that you want to be, what is the highest valued goal you could pursue, and whose opinions should carry any weight in your pursuit, knowing that your journey in life will never be a solo act. Now, if you answer some of those questions and you realize that everyone around you is not exactly aligned with where you want to go, then in the short term, you have to at least consciously practice caring more about what you think of you instead of what those around you do. And there's nothing natural about that. So then how do you practice that? By asking questions like, who is it that I would like to be if I had all the support in the world? Because that question takes away the worry about criticism. And if you could be anyone, and it would be the highest version of yourself, who exactly would you aim at becoming? What type of role model could you be in a way that you'd be most proud of? So then the next part of this equation about caring what people think is to understand that not everyone is going to support you, even people that you care about that are close to you. So how do you deal with that? First, it's important to know that when you set a goal for yourself, unless it's something that you've already done, which would defeat the purpose, then you're going to be full of doubts. So let's just say you've aimed relatively high in terms of your valued goal in life at this moment, and you're 50% full of doubts, and 50% of you feels confident that you're pursuing the right thing in the right manner. So then as you start to communicate your goal to the world, even if it's just through your actions, 4 or 5 people start to object or criticize something about what you're up to, and they use the same doubts that already exist in your mind. Well, then that 50% turns into 80% real quick. And we end up limping back to the corner from which we came. And we think, I'm never doing that again. That was embarrassing. And that's really hard on you. So how do you deal with the self-doubt? Well, part of it, I would say, is that you probably haven't thought out the goal in a clear enough manner. Like, what exactly are you doing and why? Because if you can't answer that in a deep way that vibrates at your core, then yes, we're going to have doubts. So spend more time reflecting on what you actually want and what that means in your life. Is it truly the most meaningful thing you could be aiming at? And why is that exactly if it is? Because if you have a list of doubts already and you haven't addressed them, then you're vulnerable. And it only takes a few things to hit you where it really stings, and you don't want to play that game anymore. The other part of self-doubt is that maybe your goal is solid, but strategy of attaining it isn't fully fleshed out, which is a high likelihood because you're probably aiming at something that you haven't achieved before. So what do you do then? Become really competent in understanding the game that you're about to play. If you're trying to get healthy, learn what that actually means and the proper way to move forward. That competence that you develop in research on strategy, testing things out, that competence will give you confidence, which replaces the doubt. And if you do that in a conscious way, I would say you're one step ahead of most people.